Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We're still in the pandemic mode and taping our shows out of the studio, but we have a good show for you tonight. We're starting to do interviews away from the studio on the internet. We've got one fellow who came in from Texas, Skylar Johnstone with Be Delightful and Cannabis. They make CBD-based honey. And then another guest is Jeff Eichen, who made the movie Lifers, about people in prison for life without the possibility of parole. And so we'll be interviewing him as well. But before that, we have our Hemp News segment. And first, we have our infamous Dancing Cannabis Leaves.
I feel the force.
Okay, our first story tonight is out of Nebraska. Nebraska voters will not have the opportunity to decide this November on a statewide ballot measure to legalize and regulate medical marijuana because of a sheriff and the Supreme Court, and probably the Governor Rickard as well. The Nebraska Supreme Court issued an opinion this week finding that the initiative's language violated Nebraska's single subject rule requirement. The 5-2 ruling followed a last-minute legal challenge from a local sheriff that came about only after the Secretary of State had determined that proponents had met qualifications to place the issue on November's ballot. The Secretary of State had previously rejected the petitioner's legal argument, but that decision was appealed to the Supreme Court. The petitioner was petitioning to keep medical marijuana off the ballot in Nebraska, and that petitioner was the sheriff of Morton County, Nebraska. The Nebraska Supreme Court concluded, quote, as proposed, the Nebraska Medical Cannabis Act contains more than one subject. By our count, it contains at least 8 subjects. The decision of the Secretary of State is reversed. We issue a writ of mandamus directing him to withhold the Nebraska Medical Cannabis Act from the November 2020 general election ballot, end quote. Initiative proponents, the Nebraskans for Medical Marijuana, immediately published a statement online stating this fight is not over and that nothing changes the fact that an overwhelming majority of Nebraskans stand with patients and families who deserve compassion and safe access to medical cannabis. It's extremely disappointing that Nebraskans with debilitating conditions will continue to be denied access to a therapeutic treatment that could provide significant benefits. An overwhelming majority of Nebraskans support this policy change, which we hope will propel state lawmakers to take action next year and approve legislation to reform Nebraska's outdated and unjust marijuana policies, end quote. I actually went to Nebraska back in 2017 and testified before the Nebraska Senate Judiciary Committee, along with Dr. Rachel Knox. We both went there at the behest of local activists. The Nebraska campaign successfully gathered and submitted over 182,000 signatures earlier this summer. The initiative would have amended the Nebraska Constitution to provide the right to use, possess, access, and safely produce cannabis and cannabis products and materials for serious medical conditions as recommended by a physician or nurse practitioner. Nebraska is one of only 3 U.S. states that remains on par with the federal government regarding continued prohibition and criminalization of marijuana, and that it doesn't recognize any form of medical marijuana. Nebraska's medical marijuana advocates aren't going down without a fight. Following the state Supreme Court ruling last week that removed their initiative from November's ballot, the campaign announced on Friday that it'll be creating a new committee to roll out a revised citizens petition for 2022. Nebraskans for Medical Marijuana said in a statement, quote, "The court has taken an already confusing and muddled single subject test and left Nebraskans with no clear standard or test. We're left with an inference that if you do propose an initiative, it better be simple and broad and have no limitations, even if they are natural and necessary to the single subject. So that is exactly what we will do," end quote. However, 2 other states are voting for medical marijuana legalization in November, in Mississippi and South Dakota on Election Day. Adult use legalization ballot initiatives will be voted on in New Jersey, Arizona, Montana, and South Dakota. Well, in case you hadn't noticed it out your window and in your lungs, it's wildfire season, and cannabis companies up and down the West Coast are feeling the impact. From burned farms and property to potentially contaminated crops from prolonged exposure to smoke, heat, and fire retardant, cannabis businesses in California and Oregon are bracing for yet another difficult fall. The wildfires, which have reportedly claimed at least 35 lives and burned millions of acres so far, have also sparked camaraderie among cannabis businesses who might otherwise be competitors. About 20% of Oregon's licensed cannabis businesses received evacuation orders as the fires were fueled by an unlikely and dramatic windstorm last week. The fires darkened the sky with smoke, which bathed everything in a persistent orange-red glow. Cadiz Pashal, the owner-operator of Pashal Farms in Malala, said their farm was placed under a mandatory evacuation order last week as 3 surrounding wildfires, the Riverside Fire, the Santiam Fire, and the Will Hoyt Fire, closed in on the region. As firefighters became spread too thin, however, Pashal said that a group of about 40 Malala locals stayed through the evacuation order to fight the approaching Will Hoyt Fire. The town, including neighboring cannabis farms, poured equipment, food, and supplies into the firefighting camp, and they were able to ultimately save that business. Not all businesses were so lucky, however, and reports indicate that multiple cannabis farms in southern Oregon were lost to the blazes. Dispensary locations also suffered enormous losses, especially in Talent and the Medford area. It's impossible to know the full extent of the damage done to the cannabis industry by the 2020 wildfires. After all, many of the fires are still burning, but it's expected that the total losses will be in the tens of millions of dollars. There are also likely to be ripple effects felt in the supply chain in the coming months to lost and or contaminated harvests. Back in Washington, D.C., Senator Cory Booker, Democrat from New Jersey, and Portland's own Representative Earl Blumenauer and several other leading advocates for marijuana reform met on Tuesday to discuss cannabis policy ahead of a planned House of Representatives vote on a comprehensive legalization bill. The main topic at hand was the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act, or the MORE Act, a bill that would federally deschedule cannabis and promote restorative justice. House leadership recently announced that the legislation would be getting a floor vote next week, just after the 21st. New Jersey Senator Booker is an original co-sponsor of the Senate version of the legislation, which was introduced by Senator Kamala Harris, now Joe Biden's vice presidential running mate. Blumenauer, meanwhile, is the architect of a step-by-step blueprint to federal legalization and a leading champion of marijuana reform in Congress. Blumenauer agreed that, quote, "the momentum is building," end quote, around marijuana reform in Congress, and argued that it would only serve to benefit lawmakers to get on board. Democrats won't be the only ones voting in favor of reform, as 4 Republican members so far have gone on record saying they will be voting yes when it comes to a floor vote next week. The advancement of the MORE Act by the House sets the stage for a potential and necessary Senate battle in 2021. If Democrats gain majority control of the Senate in November, our most significant hurdle, Senate Speaker Mitch McConnell, will no longer be able to single-handedly stonewall legislative progress. Further, several powerful Senate Democrats are already on record in support of descheduling and would likely be receptive to debating and advancing this and other important marijuana reform legislation in the next Congress. Our next story is from up north in Vancouver, Canada. The detection of THC in blood at levels greater than 2 nanograms per milliliter may persist for extended periods of time and therefore is not necessarily indicative of recent cannabis exposure, according to data published in the journal Drug and Alcohol Dependence. Investigators affiliated with the University of British Columbia performed a systemic review of relevant literature assessing residual THC plasma levels in frequent cannabis consumers. The authors reported, quote, in all studies where participants were observed for over a day, blood THC levels in some participants remained detectable during several days of abstinence, end quote, with some subjects continuing to test positive for up to 30 days. Some subjects also demonstrated a so-called double hump pattern where their THC levels rose toward the end of the week after an initial decline. The researchers concluded, quote, the studies in our review consistently demonstrate that positive blood THC levels, even levels over 2 nanograms per milliliter, do not necessarily indicate recent cannabis use in frequent cannabis users, end quote. The study's findings have implications for traffic safety laws, as several U.S. states impose either per se or zero-tolerant per se laws that criminalize the operation of a vehicle by a driver solely based upon the detection of trace levels of THC in one's blood. We oppose the imposition of per se limits for cannabis because the presence of THC in blood, especially at low levels, is not a consistent predictor of either recent use or impairment of performance. This study, residual blood THC levels in frequent cannabis users after over 4 hours of abstinence, appears in Drug and Alcohol Dependence this month. Our next story is about topical cannabis. The administration of a proprietary blend of topical cannabinoids, terpenes, and flavonoids result in wound healing in elderly patients with treatment-resistant leg ulcers, according to data published in the publication International Wound Journal. A team of Canadian scientists assessed the daily topical application of cannabinoids on wound healing and wound-related pain in patients with severe and persistent leg ulcers. The patients reduced and eventually eliminated their use of conventional analgesics over the course of the treatment. The researchers reported, quote, this is the first study to report the use of topical cannabis-based medicines to promote complete wound closure in human subjects, specifically 2 females with a mean age of 77 years, with 3 lower limbs afflicted with intractable and biopsy-proven lesions. A pair of prior case reports have similarly shown that the topical administration of cannabinoids facilitates wound healing and reduces the use of analgesics in patients with the rare skin blistering disease epidermolysis bullosa. The full text of this study, Topical Cannabis-Based Medicines, a Novel Paradigm and Treatment for Leg Ulcers, an open-label trial, appears in International Wound Journal. Our last story tonight is a survey of cannabis users buying from adult use stores. Nearly 8 in 10 cannabis consumers say they prefer herbal cannabis over marijuana-infused concentrates, according to data published in the journal Drug and Alcohol Dependence. Concentrates typically possess significantly higher levels of cannabinoids, in particular THC, than do herbal cannabis products. Researchers with Arizona State University surveyed 574 U.S. subjects with a history of consuming both herbal cannabis and marijuana concentrates. 78% of the respondents selected herbal cannabis over concentrates as their preferred type of cannabis. Respondents said that the consumption of concentrates was more likely to result in unwanted effects such as paranoia, memory disruption, and hangovers. Respondents also said that herbal cannabis was more effective at providing pain relief and that it was a better value for their money than concentrates. The authors concluded, quote, findings showing that marijuana produces greater positive effects than concentrates are consistent with cannabis administration studies documenting that moderate THC doses are preferred to high doses. The present study suggests that contrary to concerns, ultra-high THC cannabis, such as concentrates, might not produce greater positive reinforcing effects relative to lower THC cannabis, such as marijuana flowers. End quote. Analysis of retail sales report that consumers in legal states are far more likely to purchase herbal cannabis than any other type of marijuana product. The study, a within-person comparison of the subjective effects of higher versus lower potency cannabis, appears in this month's issue of Drug and Alcohol Dependence. That's the end of our hemp news segment tonight. Now we have a couple interviews that will come up here. One with Skylar Johnstone of Be Delightful and Cannabis, a CBD-based honey. And shortly after that, we'll have Jeff Eichen and some other film clips. Hey, I am here with Skylar Johnstone of Be Delightful and Cannabis. They make CBD-based honey, right?
Yep.
Skylar?
Cannabis, yeah.
So this is a product of Texas. It says Texas right here on
Yep.
top of it.
Texas wildflower. That's
And
right.
I saw your booth when I was at the Texas Hemp Convention in January this year, but everything's closed down with the pandemic still. And that's why we're recording this in our little office here on our smartphone rather than in our fancy studio. But
Works for me.
tell me how you got started with Be Delightful.
So we created
It's based in Austin, Texas.
Yep, absolutely. I started in the cannabis space about 6 years ago.
Mhm.
I was doing gluten-free, vegan, organic edibles, packaging, compostable packaging. When
So were you selling those in Texas?
in the dispensaries in Washington.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
Washington.
Mostly medical patients. I had my own medical patients I work with as a medical card holder.
Okay.
But then when they went recreational, I didn't have the $500,000 to buy one of the licenses.
Sure.
So I just decided to pack up and move to Texas.
I see. Did you have contacts in Texas, or
Not really.
but you knew Austin, like Portland, wants to keep
Yep.
weird.
Yep, keeping it weird down in Austin. I wanted to, take cannabis infrastructure to a place that didn't really have any.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first went to Texas, a lot of people didn't even know what CBD was.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, close to 4 years now. And we just celebrated our canniversary in March. So right during the pandemic, when that started, was our moving into our 4th year of business.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
And so you've had these jars for how long? How long have these been on the market?
So that's about 3.5 years now.
About 3.5 years.
Yep. So in 2017, we came out with our first jar of honey.
And so this has CBD in it.
Yep. So it's 250 milligrams was our first jar.
So is that 250 milligrams in the whole jar?
Yep.
Okay.
It comes out to about 14 milligrams per teaspoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then our 500 milligram came out.
And it says wildflower. Is this Texas wildflower honey?
Yep, that's right. So our
When
bees.
Teresa and I were down there, we went to the Lady Bird Johnson wildflower, walked around there.
Oh, yeah.
The flowers weren't in bloom in
Yeah.
January. But
Our honey's always changing about every 4 months. So
Uh-huh.
we have clover and we have sunflowers and we have blue bonnets, and so the seasons as the seasons change, so too will our honey every year.
I see. I
Yep,
see.
because it's
Okay.
real local raw honey.
I see.
Yep. So that's 100% raw honey in there.
And so how do you combine the CBD? Is it in a liquid form?
So we use what's called a CBD isolate. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Sure.
And the reason why we started with an isolate, and we've stuck with an isolate, is a lot of Texans, they didn't really want any THC whatsoever. So that was kind of the first step.
Yeah, it's not
Secondly,
legal to have THC.
It wasn't
in
legal. We didn't want to have to look over our shoulders. And then
Yeah,
we found that a
of
lot
course
of moms are giving our honey to their children. And so that's one of the reasons why we stuck with the isolate, because there is THC in even small amounts in the full spectrum products,
Mhm.
which isn't a bad thing. I believe in the full plant 100%, but we want to just make a 100% CBD product.
So how did you get your company? Did you start this company? Is
I
it
did,
your
yeah,
company?
Yeah, it's my company.
So is
yeah.
it other people in your family involved, or?
Well, sort of. My little brother, he works with us. That's about it for my family. My business partner is Seth Nair, and he's an engineer that went to Purdue. He worked on a cupcake brand down in Austin, Texas, and that went viral. And they had like 80-person lines, and so it was just phenomenal. And I heard about this, and I was like, "Wow, I need to meet this guy," And so that's how we started. We met at a little restaurant in a local famous restaurant in Austin, and I sat down and said, "Hey, I got some ideas, and there's a thing called CBD. Didn't know what it was," and I was just like, "Wow, well." You got some stuff to learn,
You've got a new packaging here.
I
You want
do,
to turn
yeah,
that around and show the
absolutely,
camera?
yeah.
We'll get some isolate shots and pop them in there. as
Yeah.
well.
So these are the little snap packs. So,
Uh-huh.
like I was mentioning, we had the 250, which was our flagship product.
Mhm.
Then we moved.
So that's
into,
this.
Is that a 250 there?
It says
Yep.
250.
So that was our flagship. Yep.
So are there different products in terms of jars this size with different amounts?
Yes. So there's a 250 and a
Says
500 in the same exact size jar.
I
so
see,
it's
I
4.5 ounces, approximately 4.65. and the same size jar, just double the amount of CBD in there.
So what do the 250 and the 500 milligram jars of honey retail for?
So the retail for these are 35,
Uh-huh.
and then the 500 are 50.
I see.
Yep.
Okay.
We actually had a little bit higher pricing before because our honey is, what we call a rescue blend. So we are saving the bees, and then we had, the cleanest tested honey we still do. And so honey's just expensive. If you're paying
Sure.
less than $10 at the grocery store for honey, then you're probably getting rice syrup.
Yeah.
And that's imported, from various Asian countries.
Sure.
And so it's unfortunate that that's happening, but those little $5 bears do not have real honey.
Mm-hmm.
And so real honey you want to find either at your local farmer's market, which we sell at a lot of farmers markets, or alternatively, you can search online for like a local honey to your area too.
What is it that drew you to combine THC and cannabis with honey? What was your inspiration?
That's a good question. So when living in Seattle, they're very progressive, the folks living out there, and they care a lot about their health. And I initially my niche market was like creating healthy edibles. So combining that with Seth's idea of a viral campaign of just like getting people like buzzing around the product.
Buzzing bees.
Buzzing bees, that's right, yep. So long story short, I want to create something healthy. So I looked at all the store shelves, all the smoke shops. There's a big one called Planet K. I walked in there and I saw like there was gummies and there was all this like sugary crap. And I was like, man, we need to create something that people actually like that care about their body are going to want to put into their body. Like how are you going to fight this illness or another? Like I can't make any medical claims, but how are you going to fight any of these situations and issues while also adding to the problem with more sugar? So I figured, honey, I paid a food scientist quite a sum of money to ask her one question, which I already knew the answer to, which was, is honey healthy? And the answer is, obviously yes, but I wanted to know why. And so because it processes through your liver differently, because it has those enzymes and the phytonutrients, that's what keeps our gut balanced. So because of all those things, I saw honey to be just the perfect medium. Because honey, never expires. We have to actually, by law, put an expiration on there only because the CBD technically expires. And I put quotations in that because I think personally one of these jars will actually outlive me. I really do. I mean, if left in a cool, dark place, the honey will preserve essentially, the CBD. I mean, you would imagine. I mean, it's the best preservative in the world. So. Yeah.
So you started retailing them about 3.5 years ago.
Yep.
And how is it going? How did you get off the ground? Did you get investors in, or?
I brought the initial investment. My business partner quickly followed that up with a little bit more liquidity. We were able to take that and just kind of all organically grow. I mean, for the first year, it was kind of hard to keep up with our demand. We would sell out just about every couple of weeks. Which was really great, but it's not really a good thing, because you want to be able to keep up with how many people are wanting to actually try your product. So at this point, now that CBD is a much more fluent kind of conversation, that is why we're pivoting into creating more on-the-go packaging products, on-the-go products that are just easier for lifestyle, and so we're kind of focusing more on where the industry is going rather than where it came from. Even though it's important to look at where we came from, it's like you gotta have to. The true entrepreneur, if you ask me, is gonna anticipate the trend before it happens. That's what we're working on now, and that's what these are. We're about 8
Go ahead and
months.
show those again back this way.
Yeah,
so
sure.
you've got these little packs that are like a little store display. Instead of plastic tubes, which are obviously wasteful, you have these in paper. And so is this kind of aluminum foil thing that
So there is a little bit of plastic on here.
It's not as much as those tubes, though.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of efficacy to this.
And so you got 20 milligrams in each package this
got it.
way.
Yep.
That's what it says.
With the tube, you got to cut off the top and then squeeze it. These you actually snap on the back, and it comes out the middle there.
So it's 12 calories per. How much is in this? Is this a teaspoon or less than a teaspoon? Or can you say?
I think it's on the front there. It should be 4 or 5 grams of honey. I believe it's 4.
It says 20 milligrams of high potency hemp extract.
I think it's about 5
Snap,
grams of honey.
squeeze, The leaf.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It's in here somewhere, I'm sure. Okay, so here I'm going to hand this back to
Sure,
you.
yeah, absolutely.
And I'll give this back to you too. And I'm going to go ahead and just try it here
Sure.
on the camera.
Please do.
So you snap it like this.
Snap it in half, yep, there you go.
And so now
Don't
there's...
squeeze too hard now,
Because
because
the oil,
that
it'll
could
come
just pop right out, so
Right.
be careful. Have it
So
close to
I've
your
snapped
mouth.
it, it's kind of opened up, so now I'll do this.
Yep, and then just pop it. There you go. Yep, you got it.
Yeah, there it popped after a moment, after we pressed it.
Yeah.
Well, it's
How's it
suitably
taste?
sweet, it's very good.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, don't thank me, thank
Honey.
the bees. They
Yeah,
do all the
exactly.
hard work.
Yeah. And so, what are you doing with the company now? So I saw your booth at the Texas Hemp Convention
Yep,
in January. Obviously, we aren't doing any of those right now.
yep.
But you're trying to get it in more and more retail outlets, I take it.
I'm
You're
trying to
wholesaler.
I'm trying to hone in on the exact person that is going to enjoy our product. So, you know, we have booths at all, like you said, all of these different cannabis conferences and then farmers markets. But I want to be properly positioned to like reach the people that are really going to like be our champion customers.
Mhm.
Like we appreciate every single customer, but then if you look at like the demographic of who's really enjoying it, it's actually been moms. It's a lot of moms and women that are enjoying our product. You know, maybe it's more of the side of saving bees and they believe that's really cute, or maybe it's that they're giving it to their kids. I've heard both sides. I had an experience where we had a mom come in and she bought every single pack out of the 30 pack just to give to her kids that are going to school instead of Ritalin or Adderall. And I'm just like, wow, that is just amazing. You know, so I'm trying to look for where she likes to shop. And so that's kind of my main focus right now as far as that. And then because there aren't any real in-person events right now, we've pivoted to go mostly online.
I see.
Don't know how to digital yet.
And so, if I wanted to get in touch with your company,
Mhm.
how would I do that online?
So I encourage people to find our website. It's just bedelightful.com. So,
Two E's
yeah,
in B, just like it says there.
BE Delightful. Yep. You can even Google it, search Cannabis or Be Delightful. If they want to get a hold of me personally, I always look forward to talking to people, whoever they are, and hearing their experience with our product. I'm just Skyler, SKYLER, at BeDelightful.com.
Okay,
Yep.
that's easy.
Yep, very simple.
Anything else you want our audience to know?
Yeah, I mean, we have social channels too. So, we actually created a bee removal sponsorship program that allows us to safely relocate hives. So if you ever have any bees in your backyard, the wall, or the shed, you can call us and we can assist you on either who to talk to locally,
Okay.
or alternatively, we also work with, Michael is one of our bee rescue operators. So we sponsor him by providing the bee jacket, as well as, someone's compensation for the beehives that he's then transplanting into.
I see.
Yep. So
is this in Texas or is it
we
with this
help-
particular?
We help save the bees almost all over. For us, we've helped create a foundation in Tulum, Mexico, about the Melipona bees. We've saved bees in Florida and Texas. So it kind of expands all over.
How did you get into the bee rescue aspect of your honey business?
It's a good question. So when we were thinking about honey as the medium, we were kind of also looking at what produces honeybees, and so what is the best way to create, like I said earlier, that buzz and that lifestyle brand that just goes viral, that people are just like, oh my gosh, it's so cute, and they want to support. So that's what we want to do, is we want to create that feeling of initially we said that we were going to save 100 bees per jar. We were like, well, that's cool and all, but really we were saving 200 or 300 bees per jar because of the amount that we were, investing into helping people to save the hives. We then alternatively set our first goal, which was 1 million bees, and then we achieved that, and we threw a vegan tasting dinner party. So it was all CBD infused, but every single bite of food that you ate was what was directly responsible for the pollination of a honeybee. And so it was very fun. We called our tasting menu vegan. But I really knew, from growing up even, that bees were integral to our society and the world that we live in. And to be honest, I want to do something, and it was kind of hard to, pick exactly what I want to do. But when I saw bees, I was like, that's a no-brainer. Everybody loves bees. Everybody wants to, of course it hurts to get stung. But people at least have this respect, and like there's just a deeper respect to bees. And after spending quite a bit of time in Mexico, bees are sacred, to the Mexicans and the pueblos down there. And it just blows my mind that like if they're that connected down there, I bet you that there's a lot of people that also have that deep honey love. And so that's what we kind of I love food, and honey just goes good on everything. So
It's the best sweet.
So good. Yeah. But we got a long process ahead of us. I mean, there's a lot more education that has to happen. And that's what I'm excited about in the cannabis industry. So I like educating people every day, much as possible.
Well, that's what we're doing here, obviously.
Yep,
Been doing it a number of years. Are any other particular points you'd want to educate our audience about that we haven't touched on yet?
I mean, there's quite a few, but as far as our product goes, I like to just look at it as more of a lifestyle. And so, people are going to use CBD or not, but, with the honey side, you're really choosing healthy. So like when you choose healthy, it always works out better for you and your body. So that's kind of my main words of wisdom.
All right. Well, that's a good place to close on there, Skyler. I really want to appreciate you coming in, and thanks for the samples of the honey. And it's
my pleasure.
My pleasure to meet you. Yeah. And once we get back to our real studio, maybe we'll have you come back on. In that context, we'll take viewer phone calls and questions as well.
Sure. Yeah. Patch me anytime.
I'll let you know when that starts happening again.
Yep. Happy to buzz on over anytime.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Yeah.
Thank you, and we'll be back.
See ya.
We're called the Arden Park Roots, if you guys forgot who we are. Come talk to us, we're really friendly people. The herb comes straight from the earth like rain. You every day we be pumping the sense of me, you every day we be keeping it on the real, and we will love the herb comes straight from the earth like rain. Conversion band make it cloudy from the door. Say no. We know how to roll. Cause I'm back in the seat, back in the key. That song gotta be gone. Song called Green and Gold. If you wanna know like me. Riding dirty California, kid of Chico, then them says, get you know to map and get on the Portland with my safety crew. In Seattle, Tacoma, the aroma of the Urkel colored purple bring a smile to a big.
As long as people are just being locked up for cannabis, then we've got to change those laws, and we've got to restore hemp for energy, folks. That's the real key here. The whole reason marijuana was prohibited was to stop this, to stop hemp fuel being used. Now this is hemp seed oil with a piece of hemp twine here. This is next week's wick right here, and you can burn this in any diesel engine with no conversion to the engine today. You can pour that right into your diesel engine and turn the key and drive, and that's the reason it was made illegal. It's the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, elite, crony, capitalist, ruling class that have brought us hemp and cannabis prohibition.
Hey, Jeff, how are you today? It's Jeff Eichen, Lifers Madness, the movie.
I'm so proud to be with you, man, in the smoky. How's it going in Portland?
It's very dense smoke. I think we're at like 360 particles per square meter or something, or whatever that measurement is. It's worse down in Eugene and Salem, but they say that for a major city, Portland has the worst air quality in the world right now.
Well, I've got these towels that I got at the hardware store, and you can put them in your mask. They're.
Oh, you put them in your mask. I see. So they're paper.
But
I thought maybe they were.
But this paper is like N95. You put it in there, and you can't order one while we have fires. Everybody should go get a roll of this. and put it inside their mask. I got one in here.
I have a filter inside my house, but I don't have one here. But I'm going maskless in my office here. Well, tell us what you're up to, Jeff. You're doing some online streaming programs of your own, aren't you?
How about that?
Got a little pot plant
Yeah, this
You
was
got-
a
too.
this was a trimming. I had to pull it off, but it's flowering, and so it's really cute. You know.
Nice little girl there.
So I'm having fun. And I got a COVID test so I could date because it's so stupid to be in a pandemic and not know how to date. So I did that. My Weed Wednesday show had a daughter and a father on. Was it Corgan Cooper? I don't remember who was on, but the daughter was telling her story, the family members of her dad going to jail 13 years ago. She was 13, now she's 26. She missed all that time with her papa. And
When did
so,
he get out? Was he the one that just got out on compassionate release in Michigan?
no, that was the guy that has the ankle bracelet at home. He's at home right now. But
Yeah, confinement. But this
which
other
is,
fellow has been
which
let go.
everybody should come home on home confinement, and
Yeah.
they should allow us to do paperwork and get all of our people commuted.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 people in jail should be let go. There's no doubt about that. But, we'll get there one step at a time. We have a vote here in Oregon to make it where no one goes to jail for drugs anymore. So for drug possession. So we're voting on that. It's measure 110 in Oregon this November. Same time we hopefully will,
vote for 110. Yes, we would love that.
and
that
then
we-
109 will allow psilocybin therapy in a clinical setting, which is better than nothing. I mean, I'd rather see it legal, but
What-
you won't go to jail also with
As inch it
psilocybin.
in, as you inch in the psilocybin, people will start to use the word and the term and learn more about it. And if it helps more than a few people, then we'll even be more stronger to get microdosing legalized.
Yeah, I agree.
You know.
So Wednesday show, tell our audience about your Wednesday show.
I introduce people that are in jail and people that are free. And my guest host, Stephanie Landa and Amy Pova, they were both in jail for 6 and 9 years for pot. And so they're powerful women in the party. And we rotate them as guest hosts. And it's just really a blessing to have.
I did not realize that Stephanie Landa had been in prison for a long time. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Stephanie Landa was in prison. She's one of my guest hosts.
Okay, I've met her several times. I knew she was an advocate for prisoners, but I didn't realize that she had been. I thought it was someone. Her family had been impacted.
So the absurdity of all of it is, it's the war on people now. I'm going to take my mask down because I can, and it's the war on people. It's the war on people, not the war on drugs, and BLM is addressing that.
A war on drugs, that's kind of like a war on chairs or a war on sandwiches, You can't fight a
war on aspirin. That's a drug.
Right. I have a antique medicine container from Johnson & Johnson that is 90% cannabis and 10% aspirin. And it's a topical medicine from Johnson & Johnson, since you brought that up. But it's about 110 years old.
Well, it's not only proof, it's God's plan. And for gosh sakes, look how sweet, Michael Thompson is. And he's got 27 years. He's in COVID hospital right now. So pray for Michael. Pray for Lance Glore, everybody, for the fires down by the prison.
Unfortunately, today, or just last night, actually, as we record this, my friend who'd done several benefit concerts for our initiative to legalize marijuana in Oregon, Toots Hibbert of Toots and the Maytals, passed away from COVID-19. So I'd just like to honor the memory of Toots Hibbert. Toots invented the word reggae, and I had a first song back in the early 60s called Do the Reggae, and that's what gave reggae its name.
Wow.
He put out a new album last month, and it has some very powerful songs in it.
Well, there's work to be done on the other side. That's what the mushrooms and the plant medicine is going to teach us, that it's okay to go to the other side and to be forgiven for all your misdeeds and to do work from the other side. Because I think that I believe in that shit, you know. I'm not sure about, you know, about AI and aliens and crop circles yet, but I know that there's a lot of strangeness that we don't know about that plant medicine brings us closer to. It brings us closer to inner space instead of outer space. And they're trying to go to Mars right now. Elon Musk. What the hell?
Yeah. Tell our audience about your movies, Lifers.
Lifers, the movie, is a really beautiful example of people in jail for marijuana, for their belief in marijuana. I have many examples. For years, I've been going around the country interviewing people that make a difference. Baby Landon is in my movie. He's 8 years old. Now he's about 11. And he cured cancer, his mom with the Cannabis. And he says in my movie, when I asked him, do you like marijuana? He goes, yes. And I said, what did it do for you? He said, it made my hair grow back. We have people that are ex-cops from LEAP in there in the movie. We have Tommy Chong. Tommy Chong is my friend now. And he told us all about his time in jail. And hang on, I'm getting a buzz here. Okay. And so he, Tommy Chong said, huh?
You said you were getting a buzz. I didn't see you take any puffs.
My electronics were. I have a. As I tell you my story about my movie, Lifers, a movie, I want to see how many people remember this. Okay, do you know what that is?
That is a prototype.
That is a prototype. I bought 10 of these and I put the leather on them. I put leather on everybody, and then I'm going to be.
Jack Carey used to love his prototype. That was the pipe he always carried around.
I love.
Leather cover on there.
Yeah, so I put leather on these, and I've got 8 of them, and I've sold 2. I took them to Hemp Fest this year, but anyway, so I'm bringing back the prototypes. These are brand new made. The bottom pops out. They're just incredible. And so, so get your prototypes from me. But I got something else to share. Then I'll tell you more about my movie. You're going to be blown away with this. Okay. These came in the mail yesterday.
And they look like donuts.
Well,
they look very fattening, so I couldn't eat them on my diet.
That's hempcrete.
Oh, okay. Well, you definitely don't want to eat that.
That's hempcrete, and that's got the best R value in the country. It's so light, and it can make homes sustainable homes. Stop making marijuana illegal, man. Look at this. We can make hempcrete. It's lightweight. It's got an R value, not like gypsum and freaking concrete or wood houses. And we can do it. We can do the industrial revolution and fix the budget and get farmers and people out of jail. They can go work on the hempcrete farms. So I found this guy on Etsy, and he sent these to me. Are you frozen or are you good?
No, I'm good. I can see you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe you're amazed, but bottom line is yeah, what?
Start singing a Paul McCartney song.
Baby, I'm amazed at the way you happy me. So I'm really happy with my hemp score here, because when I go to shows, I keep them in my pockets and I pull them out when I go on stage, or I hand it to somebody and I say,
so you have a little ball of hempcrete.
Yeah, so it just feels so good. I can feel the energy.
You know, let me tell you a story.
Yeah, come on.
I used to know Ken Kesey before he passed away, and Ken went around with a big hemp ball, and he would get hemp rope and roll it up, and it was about 7 feet in diameter. It was taller than he was. And he carried it on the Johnny Carson show. He had it on our benefits when we had benefits for marijuana legalization back in the 80s here in Oregon. And so he had these huge hip balls, this hip twine. It was his educational project. Ken Kesey, for those youngsters out there that don't know, is a very famous author. He's Oregon's most famous writer, perhaps, along with Ursula Le Guin. He wrote his most famous book was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but he also wrote Sometimes a Great Notion and a lot of other things, The Devil's Box and other stuff.
And didn't he go to Europe with the Merry Pranksters?
Yeah, he was famous. This fellow wrote a book about him called The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. It was a fellow named Tom Wolfe, and that's the bestseller, talking about the Merry Pranksters and how they, back before LSD was illegal, they went around the country with the Grateful Dead, even before they were called the Grateful Dead, and did acid trips that he called what were they? They were experiences or something like that.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Electric acid test. Anyway.
Well, my Ken Kesey is not only with the bus, but with the Oregon Country Fair. His wife owns Nancy's Creamery. She owns and so they started the Oregon Country Fair. He was one of the first people there, and the Oregon Country Fair is 50 years old now. I got a 50-year-old button from last year.
It would have been their 51st year if it hadn't been canceled because of the pandemic.
Yeah, well, they had a little online thing. So back to my movie, Lifers Madness, the movie. I'm blessed that I've helped Jeff Mazansky come home, George Monterano, and Craig Kiesel. And so we just support with our movie and with our movement, and we get louder so people can say it every day and not be afraid of saying marijuana anymore, and not putting up. If the CBD and the marijuana plant that it provides helps their grandmother, and you have to sneak it into retirement homes just for their joints to feel better, or however it works, it's time that movies get out to the masses, and that our celebrities talk more about pot. Oprah, I think, just started talking about it and supporting the movement. And so we're going to have a really rough time, but we're going to have to convince the new regime, when we get Biden in there, we're going to have to convince him to get off his drug policy thing and look towards Portugal.
I agree. Like I said, we have that vote here in Oregon this year. It's Measure 110 to be like Portugal and make it where no one gets arrested for drug crimes anymore, at least not for simple possession. They'll still be illegal for people to sell it illegally. But I notice you have a super character graphic generator here. It says Lifer Madness, the movie, and your website, lifersthemovie.com, and your phone number and email. So if anyone wants to reach you, there it is.
I'm doing a benefit concert next week for the fire not next week, on the 26th, for the fire victims, every Saturday night, which I have to leave in about 5 or 10 minutes for my show. I do a live show called The Living Room Tapes, and we're going to be doing an all day from 11 to 11, an all day telethon. And I need musicians, I need hosts, I need people to man the phones in our Zoom chat. And I'm going to take Jerry Lewis's spot because he can't make it.
Yeah, he can't make it in.
So we're going to benefit for our people. Shimshai and 2 other families lost their homes in Ben Lomond in Santa Cruz, and he had $1 million recording studio. He had Martin guitars, he had Taylors, he had tablas, and he had sitars and big Kauai pianos. And he lost all of his sound equipment.
That's so tragic.
So I'm going to have
our hearts go out to everyone who's been impacted by these awful fires. Hopefully, by the time this show comes out on Friday night, we're recording this on Saturday, so 6 days earlier. Hopefully, some rain has come through and cleared our skies out and slowed these fires down. But our hearts are.
Rain on Monday. I think it's coming.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Here, let's show you the power boat here.
Oh, the big movie there.
The big kahuna.
So if someone wants to find out about your Saturday night show, and you have a show on Wednesday as well, where would they look? Would they go to lifersthemovie.com, or is there someplace else?
It's Jeff Eichen on Facebook. All my stuff streams live on Facebook and on Zoom simultaneously, and so I'm really blessed to be part of that movement.
Did you hear today the new news about Facebook's stopping live music streaming?
Oh,
today,
well,
Facebook came out with an announcement saying that starting October 1st, they will not allow anyone to do live music streaming events on Facebook anymore on their product, is what they said, which is Facebook and Instagram.
well, then who is
Now,
it?
it's just music. I don't know if it has to do with music licensing or royalty.
No. It has to do with the N word, which is connected to Adolf, in Germany.
And that's,
Well, it's just not. It's not a tactic to quash our speech and our fun, and for everybody on Facebook to not be able to come to my shows is horrible. And I don't believe
able to do music, I guess. I mean, we've always had a musical component in our show. To open and close our show, we've often had live music during our live show. We're just now experimenting with this recording for our cable TV show, which streams on YouTube and maybe on Facebook again too.
Well, thank you for bringing me to your first show here. We're on a Skype platform. It looks pretty good. You look really sharp and clean, and you sound great. And I want to give everybody some hope. And remember, I always say 3, 2, 1, 3 for weed. Everybody, hold it forwards, and that's our new peace sign. Peace, of course, and then F schedule 1. So I say 3, 2, 1. Everybody, hemp hooray. Lifersamovie.com. You can watch my movie for free. And if you come to my show tonight, right after this one, I will be streaming some beautiful music from Ashland, Oregon.
This will not stream until next week, so they can't go tonight, but
okay.
They can go to
every Saturday. And that we're having a concert, and if you're a musician and you're listening to this, you want to play on the 26th of September on our telethon to raise money for Shimshai, who lost his studio, $1 million studio with 26 track boards and everything. We're taking instrument donations and moolah. So we want to help them rebuild and to get their strength back, because everyone's discombobulated right now. So I love you, everybody. I'm going to get to my show tonight. And thank you so much, Paul.
And what I always say is restore hemp.
Hemp hooray. Hemp hooray. Love you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp.
doesn't turn off, it just has to wait. War's over. What's everybody gonna learn? War's over. Tell them we gonna burn. The good war's over. Unless you caught up in the line. That's the same old lie. War's over. So yeah, let's party and get high. So what about it? Did you hit the story yet?